Welcome to our Alumni Nutrition Talks series, a celebration of 40 years of training nutritional therapists. I'm Heather Rosa, the Dean, and I hope you enjoy this presentation.
Hello everybody. Today's talk is about nutrition for teenagers. I'm going to be very much focusing on how we can support skin health by understanding certain concepts. So I'll be talking about balancing blood sugar levels, including the right fats, and nutrients to support healing and regeneration of skin, and of course sleep. My name's Lucy Kelly. I'm a registered nutritional therapist and I trained at the Institute for Optimum Nutrition. So teenagers, it can be quite a tricky time. Anybody who's got teenage children or who has contact with teenagers will understand this. But I see it as an opportunity. They want to be more independent in their lives. They want to make more of their own choices. So I see it as a good chance to give them some information about how they can support their health through nutrition. So what's going on? Obviously, there are huge physical changes with the teenagers. They grow an enormous amount in a short space of time. Their muscle mass increases, their bone density increases, and there are huge hormonal changes. And this is, of course, all completely normal. There's also a lot mentally going on. The stereotypical moody teenager, they can get quite anxious. And the social pressures are quite hard as well. Now, if a teenager does struggle with their skin and does have acne or a lot of spots, this can dent their confidence even more and make things harder. So about 95% of people in the UK between the ages of 11 and 30 will suffer from acne at some point in their lives. So it's quite a big issue. And what is it? So we have in our skin, we have these sebaceous glands that produce an oil called sebum. And this oil moisturizes and protects our skin. Now, what happens in acne is that we produce too much of this oil. The sebaceous glands get blocked and then they get inflamed and infected and produce these red spots, all those acne lesions, the big sort of red areas. The good news is, though, is that diet and lifestyle changes can really, really help support the skin, really help calm things down and make this teenage phase a little bit easier. So how can nutritional therapy help? So there are studies that are backed by science on nutritional changes, and I have seen this in clinical practice myself. But nutritional therapy can help in sort of three main ways. Number one is to balance the hormones that drive the production of this oil. The second one is to calm down the inflammation and calm down the redness in the skin. And the third one, with nutrition, we can provide the healing and repairing, the nutrients needed to heal and repair and regenerate the skin. So first of all, let's talk about this hormonal balance. Now, when we eat sugar or foods that contain a lot of carbohydrates, the blood sugar level rises and we produce a hormone called insulin. Now, the problem happens when we eat a lot of sugar or a lot of carbohydrates that release their sugar into our bloodstream very quickly. We call these high glycemic index carbohydrates. And these would be foods like cookies, biscuits, cakes, along with sweets and chocolates and things like that. So these foods are digested and absorbed very quickly. The sugar is released into the bloodstream very quickly. And we produce a hormone called insulin to bring this sugar back down. Now, insulin also drives the production of this oil in our skin. So if we eat a lot of sugar, we produce a lot of insulin, and that then drives the production of too much of this oil. The oil in the skin then blocks the pores. These pores get infected and inflamed, and you get the spots associated with acne. So nutritionally, what can we do? It's not just about cutting out all sugar and carbohydrates. It's about bringing things down enough to have an effect. Now, this can be tricky with the teenagers, I know, because they do like their sugary drinks and sugary snacks. But I'll give you an example here. I was working with a teenager recently, and outside their school, they have a cafe. And after school, most days, everybody goes to this cafe and has a drink together, which is obviously a lovely sociable thing for them to do. But of course, they're choosing things like Coca-Cola, fizzy drinks, very sugary drinks. And when I was working with this teenager, we discussed about whether they could swap one of these drinks, maybe a couple of times a week, for something like fizzy water. And it turned out this teenager really liked Perrier. And so they went away. And when I spoke to them next, they said, well, I was able to, every time I went to the cafe, I chose a Perrier, and it wasn't a big deal at all. And so by doing that, they reduced quite a substantial amount of sugar in their diet just by doing that one little swap. And that's where working with somebody like me, who is not a parent, can be very useful, because I'm away from the sort of emotional side of things. So what else can we do to bring sugar down in the diet? One of the first things I do when I'm working with a client is I look at breakfast. Because if you get breakfast right, if you have a nice blood sugar balancing breakfast, it really sets you up for the day. The other thing is, I think there's quite a lot of confusion about what a healthy breakfast is. Now, let's take an example of a typical breakfast. So a bowl of breakfast cereal with a slice of white toast and jam, and then a glass of orange juice. Now, this breakfast is actually quite high in sugar. Because the breakfast cereal is highly processed and you've got white bread in there, the sugars are digested and absorbed very quickly, leading to a blood sugar surge and therefore an insulin surge and the side effects of that. But we can do some swaps and change this breakfast to make it better. So one of the first things you can do is swap the cereal for a muesli style of cereal. And what I sometimes do is that we start with half and half. So we do half cereal, half muesli. Now, watch out with the mueslis, because some of these crunchy mueslis, they taste absolutely delicious, but they are very high in sugar. So it's avoiding those crunchy mueslis, and it's choosing a plainer style muesli where you've got the sort of oat flakes, the uncooked oat flakes, and it's not baked like a crunchy muesli. So you can swap the cereal for a muesli, or do half and half cereal and muesli. Now, why is this good? Muesli contains fibre. And when you eat fibre in a meal, the fibre helps delay the absorption of the sugar from the digestive tract into the bloodstream, so you get less of a blood sugar surge. The other thing you could do for this breakfast is to swap the white bread for brown bread. And again, it's the same principle. Brown bread has got more fibre, and so it's more blood sugar balancing. The other thing that I would look to do is to swap the glass of orange juice for a whole orange. Now, orange juice, especially if it's the orange juice where they've taken the fibre out, is very, very high in sugar. That provides a big sugar sort of hit in one go. And because it's a juice, it's already semi-broken down. It gets absorbed into the bloodstream very quickly. So swapping the juice for a whole orange is going to help with the blood sugar levels there. So hopefully you can see the other thing that we can do is that we can add in some protein to our breakfast. Now, protein is good because when you eat protein in a meal, the protein again helps delay the absorption of the sugar into the bloodstream. So for example, with this breakfast, we could add a nice handful of seeds or nuts onto our breakfast cereal. The other thing you could do is add a nice tablespoon of Greek yogurt, and both those would provide protein. You could swap the jam on the toast for nut butter, or have slightly less jam and have a little bit of nut butter. So something like peanut butter, almond butter is a really good choice. So as you can see, there's a lot you can do to adapt this one meal to help with the sugar levels, help balance the sugar levels, help balance the hormones. Of course, you can swap to a savoury breakfast. So something like a couple of scrambled eggs on some brown toast with an orange is a very, very stabilising breakfast and a good way to start the day. When you eat a breakfast like this, a nice blood sugar balancing breakfast, you're then less likely to kind of need a snack at 11 o'clock in the morning to kind of pep you up and keep you going. So that's another advantage about choosing a more blood sugar balancing breakfast. So then I would look at lunch, and we would use the same principles here. So adding in fibre, so choosing brown bread over white bread if you're having a sandwich. Again, making sure there's enough protein in the meal. So something like a ham baguette is actually very, very heavy on the carbohydrate side. So it would be making sure that your sandwich has a decent filling in it. Some egg mayonnaise, some tuna mayonnaise. I like some cheese. And for this reason, I like pita breads, because with pita breads, they're a shell, and then you can fill them with your protein filling. With a lunch, choosing a whole fruit rather than a fruit juice or a smoothie. And then another option for lunch is to make like a pasta salad or a rice salad. And I find this quite useful with the teenagers. It's quite an easy thing to make, and it's an easy thing to transport. So you would choose brown pasta for the reasons that I've explained with the fibre. And then you would make sure you have some nice protein in there, some cold cooked chicken, again, tuna, hard-boiled eggs. You could add in some tofu or some chickpeas. But the key with the lunches is the ratio between the carbohydrate component and the protein component. And you're looking roughly for about 1-to-1. So if you've got a handful of your brown pasta, you're looking at roughly equivalent of your protein, your cold chicken. You'd have 2 hard-boiled eggs there, or some chickpeas or something like that. So it's about the ratio. Now, again, with the teenagers, snacks are another way that a lot of sugar can creep into the diet. And it's the constant snacking on sugary sweets and sugary foods that's problematic, because you're constantly producing insulin and therefore potentially constantly driving the production of the oil in the skin. What I find useful with my teenagers at home is to have lots of snacks at the ready. So when they come in from school and they're really hungry and they open the fridge, there are hard-boiled eggs there, there's chopped vegetables in there, there's always crackers and nut butters that they can spread on, plenty of whole fruits and brown bread to make sandwiches. Of course, we do have cakes and biscuits from time to time as well, but it's having those with these other foods to prevent a blood sugar surge. So when they're out and about, whole fruits again are useful. Muesli bars with added in nuts or seeds. And even I like making small tuna sandwiches to keep them going. So for dinners then, it's not always about changing the food that you're eating, but sometimes it's about looking at the balance between the carbohydrates and the proteins, like I talked about for the lunches. So let's take spaghetti bolognese as an example. So what you're looking to do is to, rather than having a huge bowl of pasta and a little bit of the sauce, you're looking to change the balance of that, slightly less of the pasta component, slightly more of the sauce. And then some salad and vegetables on the side, which I'll talk about in a minute. So really looking at the carbohydrates, and obviously you would be choosing brown pasta over white pasta to provide more fibre. Now, the second way that nutritional therapy can help is to calm down inflammation. There are certain fats, these are the omega-3 essential fatty acids, that have anti-inflammatory properties. And people that include these fats in their diets have lower, it's been shown in scientific studies to help with acne. So the message here is to include the oily fish. That is your salmon, sardines, herring, and mackerel. So to include those fish in the diet. Now, ideally, you would be choosing wild, for example, with the salmon, you'd be choosing wild salmon because there are more omega-3s in wild salmon. An economical way of doing this is to look in the frozen section of certain supermarkets. I know that Aldi do it, and choosing the wild salmon. Tin sardines are an absolutely fantastic food. They are quite a strong flavour, but if your teen likes tin sardines, then include them. They're an absolutely brilliant food. Nuts and seeds also contain these anti-inflammatory fats, and these can be included. You can throw a few nuts or seeds on your breakfast cereal or use them as snacks. The other benefit is that by adding, for example, if you add nuts and seeds onto your breakfast for the good fats, you're also adding a little bit of protein in there, which helps balance the blood sugar levels. So with one little change, you're ticking 2 nutritional boxes. Fruits, vegetables, herbs and spices contain antioxidant substances, things like polyphenols, and these have very strong anti-inflammatory properties. So they can therefore help with this calming down of the skin, calming down of the redness in the skin. So, for example, apples and onions contain a substance called quercetin. You've got the bioflavonoids in the citrus fruits, and then those purple pigments in the berries. These all have antioxidant, anti-inflammatory compounds. Green vegetables like broccoli and spinach and kale and that sort of thing's absolutely fantastic. And colourful peppers, I love the red, the green, the yellow peppers. All got anti-inflammatory compounds in them. Spices like ginger and turmeric are well known for their anti-inflammatory properties, and these are used a lot in Thai and Indian food. Now, these foods, the fruits and vegetables, particularly the vegetables, are not always the foods that our teens will naturally go towards. So how do we include them? So my advice is to make sure each meal has some kind of plant element to it. So, for example, you can chop some apple on some cereal, chop some banana on some cereal. You can throw some berries into a porridge. Frozen berries are really excellent for this, by the way. If you're making scrambled eggs for breakfast and you've got some leftover vegetables from the night before, something like some broccoli or some spinach, you can throw that into the scrambled eggs. Every time you make a sandwich, including some kind of vegetable salad component, cucumbers, tomatoes, or salad leaves. If you're making pasta salads or rice salads, I really like to grate vegetables into that. So grated carrot, grated courgette, grated celeriac can be really nice as well, or slices of red cabbage. I'm a huge fan of making coleslaws, so carrots, cabbage, celeriac, you can use white cabbage here, and making a nice mayonnaise sauce. That can be a good way of getting in some more vegetables. Stir fries are also an excellent way to get more vegetables in, and they're a very nice quick dinner to prepare. So peppers, carrots, courgettes. Think about the colour. So what you're looking at is that you're thinking about where you can add in all the time, where you can add in these vegetables, these fruits, these herbs and these spices. So even sprinkling oregano on some pasta, or adding in some fresh rosemary to something, or even dried rosemary is a good way to get all these compounds in. Think also about how you can add in colour. It's these colourful compounds that have the really, really strong anti-inflammatory properties. So, but what about quantities? Again, it's quite difficult to be very specific here, but for example, making sure there's some kind of plant element in your breakfast, and that would possibly be usually a fruit. For lunchtimes then, adding in salad to a sandwich, adding in some raw veg or some leftover cooked veg to a pasta salad. So for the evenings, for dinner, if you imagine your plate, and we talked before about this 1-to-1 ratio between, for example, the pasta with the spaghetti bolognese and the sauce, you're looking at ideally having about half your plate as salad or cooked vegetables. Now, I know that is not always possible with the teenagers straight away. So it's about just including some extra veg, including some salad with a meal, little by little, and building it up so that having these extra foods becomes a normal part of the family's diet. Just a word about fruit. Be careful about including too much fruit if you're really working on these sugar levels. So I would say maximum 3 pieces of whole fruit a day, 2 to 3 pieces, to make sure that there's not too much sugar going in, and really focusing on the vegetables. Now, the third way that nutrition can support skin health is by providing the nutrients for healing the skin and for building new skin, for healing and repair. In particular, the skin needs quite certain nutrients, the main ones being vitamins A, C, vitamin E, and zinc. Now, vitamin A is needed to form new skin cells and to speed up the regeneration process. Now, this is found in eggs and liver, but it is also found in orange-coloured fruits and vegetables. So obviously oranges, but carrots, pumpkin, apricot, and sweet potatoes. Vitamin C is needed to make collagen, which is a protein found in skin. And vitamin C is rich in the citrus fruits again, and berries, but also not forgetting the vegetables, those colourful peppers and leafy greens. Now, vitamin E, interestingly, studies have shown that patients with acne have lower levels of vitamin E. Vitamin E is needed to strengthen the skin, and it does have strong anti-inflammatory properties. So good sources of vitamin E, eggs again, avocados, leafy greens, and walnuts. Now, interestingly, with zinc, again, patients with acne were found to have lower levels of zinc compared with patients without acne. And patients who were treated with zinc did have an improvement. Now, I'm all about going for food first rather than going straight to supplements. So good food sources of zinc: pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, meat, eggs, and fish. So you can see how all the foods that I've talked about, the foods to balance the blood sugar levels, the fruits and vegetables, these all contain a lot of these skin-supporting nutrients. Sleep is also crucially important for this healing process. And interestingly, a study came out only last year, and the conclusion of this study was that acne is highly associated with poor sleep and mood. The study looked at sleep quality and at circadian rhythms, which are our natural wake-sleep cycles. So the results of this study are not surprising to me when we understand how important sleep is for healing and repair. But I think what was particularly interesting was the very strong association with acne and poor sleep. So how does this work for a teenager, and what can we do about it? Teenagers do naturally have a shift in their circadian rhythm, so they want to stay up late and they want to lie in. But of course, this is absolutely not conducive to the school day. And so as parents, we have to just do the best that we can. Now, teenagers actually need between 8 and 10 hours of sleep per night, which is more than an adult. So it's more than we might think, more than an adult needs. So with sleep times, it's again about having a conversation with your teen about why going to bed a little bit earlier may help their skin. It's also about looking at the quality of sleep, the sleeping environment, and looking at those sleep disruptors. We know that being on screens late at night affects the quality of the sleep. Things like gaming and being on social media are very stimulating, and late at night are going to affect the sleep. Again, avoiding caffeinated foods and caffeinated drinks too close to bedtime. So it's about having a regular sleep schedule. It's about going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time every day. It is very tempting to let them lie in at the weekends, and it is very difficult, I understand. But research is saying that by lying in and disrupting those circadian rhythms, that this won't actually help long term. To support skin health, to help perhaps reduce down acne, we're looking, number one, at balancing the blood sugar levels so that we don't have these surges in insulin, which are therefore driving the overproduction of the oil. And we can do that by reducing down sugary drinks and snacks, and by including protein in meals and snacks. The second thing then is to include anti-inflammatory fats. These are found in the oily fish, salmon, sardines, herring and mackerel, and also in nuts and seeds, things like walnuts, Brazil nuts, sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds. And adding these into the diet, adding them into breakfast, adding them into salads, using them as snacks. Fruits and vegetables also contain anti-inflammatory compounds, so making sure that your teen is getting some fruits and vegetables in where they can. But just being careful about having a lot of fruit in one hit, because this can this can produce too much sugar, too much insulin, and drive the production of the oil. And then the third thing is providing the healing and regeneration, the healing nutrients to support the skin health, the vitamins A, C, and E, and zinc. And of course, getting lots of rest and good quality sleep. So I hope you have found that useful. If you are interested in finding out more about how I work, you can simply email me at lucy@lucykellynutrition.co.uk. I'm also on Instagram @LucyKellyNutrition, so you can connect with me that way. Thank you very much for listening.
If you enjoyed this presentation, then click on the link in the description to subscribe to our Nutrition Talks email list. And don't forget to click the like button and subscribe.